The transport ship shook as it connected to station, held onto the metal railing and waited for the doors to open. She had traveled for 6 months to reach this place. 6 months of cold sleep, bad food, and strange looks from alien passengers who had never seen a human before. The doors slid open with a hiss. Bright white light flooded the cabin, picked up her old duffel bag and stepped onto the station floor. The Galactic Military Academy was everything the pictures had shown and more. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of beings walked through the massive halls. Some had 4 arms, some had scales, some floated instead of walking. All of them were bigger than. She was not a tall woman. Back home on the colony, she was considered average. Here, surrounded by warriors from 12-star systems, she felt like a child standing among giants. An officer sat behind the registration desk. His skin looked like blue crystal, and his 4 arms moved across different screens at the same time. When approached, he did not look up. "Name and species," he said in a bored voice. "Human, from Earth Colony 7. The officer finally looked at her. His crystal face showed no expression, but his eyes moved up and down, measuring her. She knew what he saw. A small woman with black hair tied back, wearing simple gray clothes, carrying a bag that had been repaired too many times. "Human," he repeated. He said the word like it tasted bad. "You are the 4th human to apply this year. The other 3 failed within 1 week." "I understand," said. "Do you?" The officer leaned forward. "This academy has trained warriors for 300 years. We have produced generals, admirals, and legends. Humans have been traveling between stars for only 40 years. Your species is young, weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities." Stood quietly and let him finish. "Combat assessment is in Hall 7, the officer continued. "Report there in 1 hour. Do not expect to pass. Do not expect kindness. Do not expect second chances." "Thank you," said. She took her registration card and walked away. The officer watched her go. Something about her calmness bothered him, but he pushed the thought away. She would fail like all the others. Humans always did. High above the registration area, in an observation room with dark windows, Commander stood watching. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and a face full of scars. He was also human, one of only 3 who held any rank in the galactic fleet. "Another one," said a deep voice behind him. Did not turn around. He knew who it was. Instructor was a reptilian species known for their strength and their pride. His scales were the color of old bronze, and he stood nearly 3 meters tall. "Yes," said another one. "How many must we reject?" Moved to stand beside the human commander. "How many must we send home broken and ashamed before Earth stops this foolishness?" "They will keep sending candidates." "Why? Your species is not built for war. You have soft skin, weak bones, slow reflexes. Even your own planet tries to kill you with weather and disease." Shook his massive head. "It is not an insult. It is simply truth. Humans are survivors, yes, but warriors, no." Finally turned to look at I passed the assessment. "You are different. You trained for 30 years before coming here. You modified your body with implants. You are more machine than human now." Pointed down at who was walking toward Hall 7. "That girl has none of those things. Look at her. She is small. She carries nothing but a cloth bag. She will not last 1 day." Look down at. She walked with a steady pace, not fast, not slow. Other species moved out of her way without thinking, simply because she was so much smaller. She did not seem to notice or care. "Perhaps," said quietly, "perhaps not. You defend her because she is human. That is emotion, not logic." "I watch her because something is strange." Narrowed his eyes. "Look at how she walks. Look at her footsteps." Looked. At first he saw nothing unusual. Then he noticed it. Every other being in the hall made sounds when they walked. Footsteps, clicks, the scrape of claws on metal. but the human girl moved in perfect silence. Her feet touched the ground and made no sound at all. Interesting, admitted, but silence is not strength. No, agreed, but control is. That level of body control takes decades to develop. She moves like a master hunter. Or she is simply light because she is so small. Maybe. They watched disappear into the corridor that led to Hall 7. In 1 hour, she would face the combat assessment. In 1 hour, she would fight against candidates who outweighed her by hundreds of kilograms, who had claws and fangs and natural armor. Laughed softly. I will prepare the rejection documents. She will need them before sunset. Said nothing. He continued staring at the empty corridor where the girl had vanished. In his 40 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, his instincts were telling him something. They were telling him that this girl was different. They were telling him that the academy was about to change forever. He did not know if that change would be good or bad. He only knew it was coming, and it was coming in the form of a small human woman with a torn bag and quiet footsteps. Prepare the documents if you want, finally said, but do not file them yet. Looked at him with confusion. You think she will pass? I think, said slowly, that we should wait and see. 1 hour later stood at the entrance to Hall 7. She could hear sounds of combat inside, metal striking metal, bodies hitting the ground, roars of victory and cries of pain. She took a deep breath and walked through the doors. Her life was about to change. But more importantly, the galaxy's understanding of humanity was about to shatter into 1,000,000 pieces. Just like the weapon she would soon hold in her hand. Hall 7 was enormous. The ceiling rose 50 meters above the polished stone floor. Ancient banners hung from the walls, each one showing the symbol of a species that had produced great warriors. There was no banner for humans. 30 candidates stood in neat rows across the hall. Counted them quickly. 8 with their bronze and silver scales. 6 with crystal skin that could stop most blades. 5 tall and thin with 4 arms each. And others she did not recognize, species she had only read about in books. Every single one of them was looking at her. Walked to an empty spot at the back of the formation. She set down her bag and stood with her hands at her sides. She did not look away from the stairs. She did not lower her head. She simply waited. A door opened at the far end of the hall. 3 instructors entered. Was among them, his bronze scales catching the light. Beside him walked a female with dark blue crystal skin and a creature did not recognize, something like a floating sphere covered in eyes. Candidates, his voice boomed across the hall. Welcome to your assessment. Today we will test your combat abilities. You will fight. You will bleed. Some of you will fail and go home. This is not cruelty. This is truth. The galaxy does not need soldiers who cannot fight. The floating sphere drifted forward. I am the scanner, it said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I have watched warriors for 300 years. I have seen legends born and fools destroyed. I will judge you fairly. I will judge you honestly. I cannot be fooled. I cannot be bribed. I see everything. Hundreds of tiny eyes on the sphere's surface all turned to look at. She felt the weight of that gaze but did not react. We will begin with basic combat trials, the female announced. Pair formations, standard rules. First to yield or fall unconscious loses. The candidates began pairing up, watched as a large male walked toward her. He was young, maybe her age, with golden scales and eyes that burned with confidence. He wore ceremonial armor that probably cost more than her entire colony earned in a year. I am, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Son of general, hero of the campaign. I have trained since I could walk. I have killed enemies of the Empire since I was 16. Looked up at him. He was nearly twice her height. His claws looked like curved knives. His tail was thick with muscle, capable of breaking bones with a single strike. I am, she said simply. I know what you are, human, spat the word. Your species does not belong here. You are insects compared to us. You are prey animals pretending to be predators. The other candidates had stopped pairing up. They were watching now, sensing something about to happen. I challenge this human, announced to the instructors. First blood rules, traditional combat. Whispers spread through the hall. First blood challenges were old, almost forgotten. They allowed real weapons, real danger. Deaths sometimes happened. Stepped forward. Candidate first blood challenges on assessment day are unusual. But legal replied, it is my right. The instructors exchanged looks. The female shrugged. The expression was unreadable. It is legal, confirmed. Candidate of Earth, you may withdraw from this challenge without penalty. No shame will be recorded. Every eye turned to her, could feel their expectations. They expected her to back down. They expected her to run. That was what humans did, after all. Humans were weak. Humans were cowards. Everyone knew this. She looked at his armor, his claws, his confident smile. Then she looked at the weapon on his belt. It was a blade, a sword forged from compressed starlight. Such weapons could cut through almost anything. They were priceless. They were deadly. No, said, her voice was quiet but clear. I accept the challenge. Laughed, it was not a kind sound. Then you have chosen your death, human. The scanner floated closer, its many eyes focused on with new interest. Challenge accepted, it announced. Traditional first blood rules apply. Combat ends when one fighter draws blood from the other or when one fighter yields or becomes unable to continue. The other candidates moved back, forming a wide circle. Instructors took positions around the edge. High above in the observation room, Commander pressed his hands against the glass window and watched. What is she doing? He whispered. She has no weapon, she has no armor. Drew his blade. It hummed with energy, glowing faintly blue. He held it with practiced ease, moving through a series of warm-up forms. Each movement was perfect. Each strike would have killed an ordinary opponent. Stood still. She had not moved from her spot. She had not raised her hands or taken any fighting stance. She simply watched with calm eyes. Are you frozen with fear? Taunted. Do you finally understand what you face? I understand, said. Then prepare yourself. I am prepared. Smile faded slightly. Something about her calmness was wrong. Prey animals did not act like this. They ran, they trembled, they begged. This human did none of those things. But it did not matter. He was son of a general. He had never lost a fight. He would not lose to a human. The scanner spoke. Combat begins in 3, 2, 1, begin. Exploded forward. His speed was incredible. Warriors were among the fastest species in the galaxy, and was fast even for a. He crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, his blade already swinging towards throat. Time seemed to slow. Raised her left hand. Not to block, not to deflect. She opened her palm and caught the blade directly. The sound that followed would echo in the memories of everyone present for the rest of their lives. It was the sound of impossibility. It was the sound of everything they knew about humans being proven wrong. The blade, forged from compressed starlight, capable of cutting through warship armor, shattered against its bare palm. Fragments of blue light scattered across the floor like broken dreams. And in the silence that followed, the scanner's voice trembled with something that sounded almost like fear. Scanning, error HOW, how is this possible? Stood unmoved. Her hand was unmarked, not a scratch, not a drop of blood. She looked at with something like sadness in her eyes. Yield, she said softly, please, I do not want to hurt you. But was already screaming and lunging at her with his claws. And everything changed forever. Screamed with pure rage. His blade, the weapon that had been in his family for 6 generations, lay in pieces on the floor. His pride, his honor, everything he believed about himself shattered with it. He threw himself at with claws extended, all technique, all training forgotten. He was no longer a warrior. He was a wounded animal attacking the thing that had hurt him. Moved. To the watchers, it looked like she simply stepped to the side. But the scanner saw the truth. It recorded every fraction of every second. It measured her speed at levels that should have been impossible for any biological creature. She was faster than much faster, and she was not even trying. His claws cut through empty air. He stumbled, turned, attacked again, caught his wrist with one hand. Her fingers, small and delicate-looking, wrapped around his arm like iron bands, tried to pull free. He could not move. It was like his arm was trapped in stone. "Please stop," said. Her voice was gentle, almost sad. "I do not want to hurt you." Roared and swung his other arm at her face. His claws, sharp enough to tear through metal, sliced toward her eyes. Caught that arm too. Now she held both his wrists, was nearly twice her size. He weighed 3 times as much as she did. His species was known across the galaxy for their strength, and he could not move, could not pull free, could not do anything but hang in her grip like a child held by a parent. The hall was completely silent. No one breathed. No one moved. They simply watched the impossible happening in front of them. The scanner floated closer, its many eyes blinking rapidly. Scanning subject. Scanning. Warning. RESULTS do not match any known parameters. Twisted her body in a single smooth motion. She swept legs out from under him and placed him face down on the floor. One hand pressed against his spine, not hurting him, just holding him completely still. "Yield," she said again. "Please, this does not have to continue." Tried to rise, his muscles strained. His scales scraped against the stone floor. He could not move a single centimeter. "Analysis continuing," the scanner announced. Its voice had lost its calm tone. It sounded confused, almost frightened. Subject YUNA. Physical parameters exceed all known biological limits. Bone density measured 847% above galactic human average. Muscle fiber composition unknown. Neural response time too fast to measure with current equipment. The instructors exchanged shocked looks. His mouth hung open, showing all his teeth. The female had taken several steps backward, her crystal skin flickering with colors that showed deep fear. "Additional analysis," the scanner continued. "Subject's skin demonstrates resistance beyond any known organic material. The VETH blade should have severed her hand. Instead, the blade broke. This unit has no explanation." Commander was already running. He burst through the observation room door and sprinted toward the hall. His old legs burned with the effort, but he did not slow down. He had to reach the hall. He had to understand what he was seeing. On the floor, finally stopped struggling. His strength was gone. His rage had burned itself out. Now there was only confusion and the beginning of something he had never felt before. "Fear." "I yield," he whispered. The words hurt more than any wound. Immediately released him. She stepped back and offered her hand to help him up, stared at that hand, the same hand that had destroyed his blade, and did not take it. He pushed himself up on his own and stumbled away from her. "Combat CONCLUDED," the scanner announced. "Winner, candidate YUNA of Earth. Method, submission. Time, 14 seconds. 14 seconds. Son of a general, heir to a warrior legacy, had lasted 14 seconds against a human woman with no weapons and no armor. The scanner drifted directly in front of. Its hundreds of eyes studied her from every angle. The silence in the hall stretched on and on. Then the scanner spoke the words that would spread across the galaxy within hours. "This unit has observed 1,247,892 combat assessments over 300 years. This unit has seen WARRIORS of every species. This unit has witnessed strength and speed beyond ordinary LIMITS. A pause. The eyes blinked in patterns that no one understood. This unit has never seen anything like Subject YUNA. Another pause, longer this time. Genetic scan CONFIRMS subject is 99.97% baseline human. No artificial MODIFICATIONS DETCTD. No cybernetic ENHANCMNTS. No genetic engineering. The scanner's voice dropped lower, almost to a whisper. It was a machine that had never shown emotion in 3 centuries of service, but now something like wonder crept into its words. How is SHE human? The doors to the hall burst open. Commander ran inside, breathing hard. He pushed through the crowd of stunned candidates until he stood before. She looked at him calmly. There was no pride in her eyes, no satisfaction at her victory. If anything, she looked tired, sad. "You know," she said, "it was not a question." Nodded slowly. "The colonies, the crash 30 years ago, I was on the rescue mission." "Then you know why I am like this." "I know what happened. I thought everyone died." "We did not die." His voice was quiet, meant only for him. "We survived. We adapted. Generation after generation, living on a world that should have killed us. Our bodies changed. We became something new." She looked down at her hands. The same hands that had broken a blade forged from starlight. "But we are still human," she said. "We are still your people. We are still family." Stared at her for a long moment. Around them, chaos was beginning. Candidates shouted questions. Instructors demanded explanations. The scanner continued scanning and rescanning, trying to understand what it was seeing. But in that small space between, and there was only silence, and understanding, and the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. "Come with me," finally said. "We need to talk privately." Picked up her old duffel bag from where she had left it. She followed toward a side door, leaving behind a hall full of beings whose entire understanding of humanity had just been shattered. Just like Blade. Just like everything they thought they knew. Behind them, the scanner continued its analysis, searching for answers it would never fully find. "How is SHE human?" it asked again, to no one in particular. And somewhere in the chaos, sat alone, staring at the broken pieces of his family blade, and began to wonder if everything he had been taught about humans was wrong. The room brought her to was small and plain, gray walls, a single table, 2 chairs, no windows. It was the kind of room used for private conversations that no one else should hear. Sat down and placed her bag on the floor. Remained standing, his back against the closed door. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. 30 years ago, finally said, "I was a young officer on the rescue ship Wanderer. We received a distress signal from colony ship Horizon. They had been heading to a garden world called New Eden. Something went wrong with their navigation systems. They crashed on an uncharted planet." 442b said, "That is what we call it now. When we arrived, we could not believe what we found. The planet had nearly 4 times Earth's gravity. Normal humans cannot survive in such conditions. We thought everyone would be dead." His voice grew heavy with old memories. "But we detected life signs. 300 people still alive after weeks on that world. My grandparents were among them." Nodded. "We tried to land. We tried everything. But our ships could not handle the gravity. Every attempt to land ended in failure. The rescue shuttles were crushed like paper." "I know." His voice was soft. "My grandmother told me the stories. She said they watched the rescue ships fall from the sky like burning stars. She said they waved and screamed and prayed, but no one could reach them. We had no choice." His words came out rough, like they hurt to speak. "We had to leave. We reported the colony as lost. No survivors. The official record says everyone on the Horizon died." "But we did not die." "No, you did not." Stood and walked to the center of the small room. "My grandmother was pregnant when the ship crashed. My mother was born on that world in gravity that should have crushed her tiny bones, but it did not crush her. It made her stronger. She held up her hand and looked at it like she was seeing it for the first time. Each generation adapted more. Our bones became dense as steel. Our muscles grew in ways that doctors cannot explain. Our reflexes became faster. Our skin became tougher. The planet that should have killed us instead changed us into something new. How many of you are there now? Nearly 2,000. 300 survivors became 2,000 over 30 years. We built homes in the valleys where the gravity was slightly less. We learned to farm, to build, to survive. We created a life on a world that wanted us dead. Finally moved away from the door. He sat in the other chair, suddenly looking very old and very tired. Why did you never contact Earth? Why did you never tell anyone you survived? Laughed, but there was no happiness in the sound. We tried. For years we tried. We rebuilt a communication array from the crashed ship. We sent messages to Earth, to every human colony we could reach. Do you know what response we received? Nothing. Worse than nothing, fear. Eyes hardened. The few who believed us were afraid. They said we were no longer human. They said we were mutations, monsters. They said we should stay on our world and never leave. That cannot be true. Earth would have helped. Would they? Reached into her bag and pulled out a small data chip. This contains every message we sent and every response we received. The government of Earth officially declared us non-human 17 years ago. They said our genetic changes made us a new species. They said we had no right to call ourselves human anymore. Took the chip. His hands trembled slightly. We are still human, continued. The scanner confirmed it. 99.97% baseline human. We are your cousins, your family. We bleed the same color. We dream the same dreams. We want the same things, to live, to grow, to be part of something larger than ourselves. Why come here? Why the academy? Because my people need a voice. Sat back down, leaning forward with intensity. We have been forgotten, abandoned. The galaxy thinks humans are weak because they have only met the humans of Earth. They have never met us. They do not know what humanity can become when pushed to its limits. She pointed toward the door, toward the hall where she had just shattered everyone's expectations. I came here to earn a place in the galactic fleet. I came here to prove that humans, all humans, deserve respect. I came here to show the galaxy that we are not prey animals. We are not insects. We are survivors. We are adapters. We are strong in ways that no one has ever seen. Was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I have spent 40 years trying to earn respect for humanity. 40 years of being told we are too weak, too slow, too fragile. I modified my body with machines because I believed that was the only way a human could compete. He looked at with new eyes. But you did not need machines. You did not need modifications. You became strong the natural way, the human way. Adaptation, said. It is what we do. It is what we have always done. From the first human who learned to use fire to the first human who reached the stars, we adapt, we overcome, we endure. A knock came at the door. His voice rumbled through the metal. Commander, the Galactic Council has been informed. They want to see the human girl. They have questions. Stood, he straightened his uniform and looked at with something that might have been pride. Are you ready for this? Once the Council sees you, there is no going back. Your people will no longer be forgotten, but they will also no longer be hidden. The galaxy will know about the humans. Rose and picked up her bag. She squared her shoulders and lifted her chin. Good, she said. Let them know, let everyone know. She walked to the door and paused with her hand on the handle. We have been hiding long enough. It is time for humanity to remember its forgotten children. She looked back with fire in her eyes. And it is time for the galaxy to learn that humans are much more than they ever imagined. She opened the door and stepped into the chaos waiting outside. And for the first time in 30 years, the humans were no longer alone. 3 months had passed since shattered the blade with her bare hand. 3 months of challenges, tests, and trials that would have broken any ordinary candidate. 3 months that changed the academy forever. Stood at the front of the graduation hall, wearing the black uniform of a fleet officer. Behind her stood 500 graduates from across the galaxy. Ahead of her sat the instructors, the Galactic Council representatives, and thousands of spectators who had come to witness history. The journey had not been easy. After her fight with, half the academy had demanded her expulsion. They said she was a genetic freak, a monster wearing human skin. They said allowing her to stay would make a mockery of everything the academy stood for. The other half had wanted to study her like an animal. Scientists from 12 systems sent requests to examine her body, to take samples of her blood and bone, to understand how a human could become what she had become. Had refused them all. She had not come to be expelled or studied. She had come to prove herself as a warrior. And prove herself she did. Every challenge that came her way, she met with quiet determination. When they made her run obstacle courses designed for species with 4 legs, she ran them faster than anyone expected. When they put her in combat simulations against multiple opponents, she won without seriously hurting anyone. When they tested her tactical knowledge, her leadership skills, her ability to work with species who feared and hated her, she passed every test. But it was not her strength that won people over, it was her kindness. The first to change his mind was, 3 days after their fight he came to her quarters. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes were hollow with shame. "I was cruel to you," he said. "I judged you because of your species. I was everything I was raised to hate in others." Invited him inside. She made him tea from leaves she had brought from her. She listened as he spoke about his father's expectations, his fear of failure, his need to prove himself worthy of his family name. "You could have killed me," said. "In that fight, you could have crushed my throat, broken my spine, ended my life with a single move. Why did you not?" "Because that is not who I am," answered simply. "Strength without mercy is just cruelty. Victory without honor is just murder. I did not come here to destroy, I came here to build." Had stared at her for a long moment. Then he knelt before her and spoke words in his native tongue, words that did not understand. "I have sworn an oath," he explained. "Among my people it is the highest bond outside of family. I am now your oath brother. Your enemies are my enemies. Your battles are my battles, until death and beyond." From that day forward stood beside her. When others tried to sabotage her training, he protected her. When rumors spread about her being inhuman, he spoke the truth of what he had seen. Slowly, others began to change their minds too. Now, on graduation day, stood in the front row of graduates, his scales gleaming with pride. Beside him stood others who had become friends. A named who had helped her understand galactic politics. A named who had taught her to pilot combat ships. Beings from species that had mocked humans now called her sister, friend, leader. Commander rose from his seat and approached the podium. His uniform was covered with medals, the result of 40 years of service. But today, he looked happier than anyone had ever seen him. "Candidates," he said, his voice carrying across the massive hall. "You have completed your training. You have proven yourselves worthy of serving in the Galactic Fleet. But before we proceed with the ceremony, there is one matter to address." He gestured toward. For the first time in 300 years, the Academy has a human valedictorian. Candidate has achieved the highest scores in combat, tactics, leadership, and diplomacy. She has done this while facing challenges no other candidate has ever faced. She has earned this honor through blood, sweat, and determination. The hall erupted in applause. Not everyone clapped, but most did. Even some of the council representatives who had argued for her expulsion now showed respect. "Stepped aside," The floor is yours. Walk to the podium. She looked out at the sea of faces, alien and strange, yet no longer frightening. These beings had become her comrades, her family. 3 months ago, she began, I walked into this academy as the representative of Earth's forgotten children. My people survived on a world that should have killed them. We adapted. We grew strong. And for 30 years we were alone. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I did not come here to prove that humans are the strongest species. We are not. I did not come here to prove that we are the fastest we are not those things either. She raised her hand, the same hand that had shattered the blade. I came here to prove that we endure, we adapt, we never give up on each other. That is what humanity is, not our bodies, not our abilities, our spirit, our refusal to surrender even when the universe itself tries to crush us. Her voice rose. My people were abandoned on a world of crushing gravity. Instead of dying, they grew stronger. That is human. My ancestors crawled out of caves and learned to tame fire. That is human. We spread across our world into space, across the stars, always reaching for more. That is human. She looked directly at the council representatives. You called us weak, you called us primitive, you said we did not belong among the stars, she smiled. You were wrong. The scanner, hovering near the ceiling, spoke for the first time during the ceremony. This unit has observed candidate YUNA for 3 months. This unit has ANALYZED her actions, her DECISIONS, HER character. Every eye turned upward. Combat rating, unprecedented. Leadership assessment, exceptional. Psychological profile, integrity beyond measure. A pause. This unit has one additional observation. The scanner's many eyes focused on. Wherever she goes, history will follow. This unit recommends, watch closely. The galaxy is about to change. Looked up at the ancient machine. Thank you, she said simply. She turned back to the audience. Behind her, wiped tears from his eyes. Beside him, stood with scales flushed dark with emotion. Even the instructors who had doubted her now looked at her with respect. To anyone who thinks humans do not belong among the stars, said, her voice ringing through the hall. To anyone who thinks we are too weak, too small, too young to matter. She raised her fist. Watch us. The hall exploded with sound. Cheers, roars, the stamping of feet and claws and appendages. 500 graduates joined their voices together. This roar was loudest of all. And high above the academy, a message was already spreading across the galaxy. The story of a human woman who shattered a blade with her bare hand. The story of a forgotten colony that adapted and survived. The story of a species that refused to give up. The story of humanity. In the years that followed, Admiral would lead the United Fleet against threats that made the old enemies seem like children. She would stand beside allies from every species, fighting for a galaxy that had once dismissed her people as worthless. And whenever anyone asked how humanity, the youngest species in the galaxy, had become its greatest defenders, she would always give the same answer. We are human, we do not know how to quit. The scanner, still watching after all those centuries, would add its own observation. Correction, they do know how to quit. They simply choose not to. That is why they are extraordinary. And somewhere on a heavy gravity world circling a distant star, 2,000 humans looked up at the sky and finally felt like they belonged to something greater than themselves. Their forgotten daughter had become a legend, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again.